1. Zinedine Zidane's headbutt in the 2006 World Cup final. What is a legacy? Is it the sum of 1,000 moments of genius, or can it be undone by 1 second of madness? Imagine being the king of the world, your career a symphony of impossible grace, and in your final, defining act, you choose not the brush of an artist, but the head of a bull. The gods of Olympus gave Achilles a single, fatal flaw. On July 9, 2006, the gods of football reminded us that their greatest mortal son, Zinedine, also had one. It wasn't his heel, it was his heart, ignited by a whispered insult about his sister. The 2006 FIFA World Cup final in Berlin's Olympia Stadium was meant to be a coronation, the final chapter in a hallowed scripture of football. It was Zinedine Zidane's last dance. At 34, he was supposed to be a fading star, a glorious echo of his former self. Instead, he had turned the tournament into his personal revival tour. He had resurrected a French team that had stumbled through the group stages, and with performances of otherworldly genius, he had slain the giants of Spain and Brazil, and then clinically dispatched Portugal. He was not just playing football, he was conducting it, bending the very fabric of the game to his will. The final against Italy was the crescendo. Just 7 minutes in, he stepped up to take a penalty. With the weight of a nation on his shoulders, and the eyes of 1 billion people on him, he did not blast it. He floated it, a Panenka chip of such audacious, arrogant brilliance that it kissed the crossbar and bounced over the line. It was a statement. I am Zidane. I do not feel pressure. The match unfolded into a tense attritional war, a classic final. Marco Materazzi, the rugged Italian defender, equalized with a powerful header. The game stretched on, past 90 minutes, deep into the brutal leg-sapping terrain of extra time. The score remained locked at 1-1. The storybook ending, with Zidane lifting the trophy, was still a possibility, flickering in the Berlin night. Then, in the 110th minute, the script was not just torn up, it was set on fire. As Zidane trotted back upfield after a French attack, Materazzi was shadowing him, a persistent pest, tugging at his jersey. Frustrated, Zidane offered a sarcastic retort, reportedly saying, "If you want my shirt that badly, I'll give it to you after the match." Materazzi's response was not a physical challenge but a verbal stiletto, a crude and deeply personal insult targeting Zidane's beloved sister Lila. It was a line crossed, a desecration of something sacred. For a man who had built a career on absorbing the kicks, the pressure and the chaos with an almost regal calm, this insult found a crack in his marble facade. The world watched in a collective, suspended gasp of disbelief as the artist, the maestro, suddenly stopped. His programming seemed to glitch. He turned, his face a mask of cold fury, and walked back towards Materazzi with the chillingly deliberate pace of a man who had made a decision. There was no hesitation. He lowered his head and, in a shocking, primal explosion of violence, drove it like a battering ram into the center of the defender's chest. Materazzi crumpled to the ground, a victim of a rage forged in the hard streets of Marseille. It was a moment so raw, so out of character, so viscerally human that it felt like a... The game stopped. The players were stunned. After a moment of frantic confusion, the referee, alerted by his fourth official who had witnessed the incident on the replay monitors, brandished a red card. Zidane's final act on a football pitch was not a wave to an adoring crowd, but a lonely, haunting walk of shame. As he walked past the gleaming World Cup trophy, sitting tantalizingly on its pedestal, he didn't even glance at it. He was a king, walking to his own exile, without their captain, their leader, their spiritual guide, and their designated penalty taker for the impending shootout. A shell-shocked and leaderless France inevitably lost. Zidane's moment of rage wasn't just a red card. It was a self-immolation. It was a shocking, human, and tragic mistake. A reminder that even the greatest gods of the game are agonizingly mortal, and that a legacy sculpted over 2 decades of genius can be forever redefined by a single, impulsive, unforgettable second of madness. 2. Steven Gerrard's slip against Chelsea 2014. For 24 agonizing years, a city, a club, and a global fan base had waited. Their captain, their hero, their living embodiment of loyalty and passion, was on the brink of delivering the one trophy that had cruelly eluded them. The Premier League title. The club's rallying cry, inspired by their captain himself, was "This does not slip." But in the most gut-wrenching cinematic twist of fate, it was the captain, the very soul of the team, who slipped, and with his fall, the dreams of millions crumbled into dust. Sometimes, a football match is more than a match. Sometimes, it's the hopes of a generation, the destiny of a legend, and the spirit of a city, all lost in a single, unfortunate moment on the turf. This is the story of that moment for Steven Gerrard and Liverpool. The 2013-14 Premier League season was a glorious, unexpected fairy tale for Liverpool Football Club. It was a dream made flesh. After years of mediocrity under manager Brendan Rodgers, they were playing a brand of breathtaking, relentless, swashbuckling attacking football that had swept aside all challengers. And the orchestra conductor of this symphony was none other than the club's living legend, Steven Gerrard. In the autumn of his career, He had evolved his game, transforming into a deep-lying playmaker, dictating the tempo with his experience and vision. He was not just a captain. He was an on-field general, a father figure, and the very embodiment of the Liverpool spirit. And that spirit was marching towards the Holy Grail, the Premier League, craved for 24 long years. Just 3 games left. Liverpool's destiny was in their own hands. They sat atop the table, and the next major hurdle was a home match against Jose Mourinho's cunning Chelsea side. A win would all but secure the title. Even a draw would keep them in a commanding position. The atmosphere at Anfield that day was not just for a match. It was the preparation for a city's, a generation's, cathartic ceremony. It was electric, hopeful, tense, and historic. The match, as expected, was a tight, tactical chess match. Then, in the final seconds of first-half stoppage time, one of the cruelest, most unforgettable moments in football occurred. Midfielder Mamadou Sakho played a simple, risk-free, routine pass to Gerrard, the deepest man back in his own half. It was a pass he had received and controlled tens of thousands of times in his career. As he moved to cushion the ball, fate intervened. His footing gave way. His studs refused to grip the sacred Anfield turf. He slipped. The ball slid agonizingly from under his boot and rolled perfectly into the path of the lurking Chelsea striker. Demba Baba was gifted the easiest present of his life. An unopposed run on goal lay before him. By the time Gerrard desperately, hopelessly scrambled to his feet and gave chase, it was too late. Ba slotted the ball past the goalkeeper and fell into a tomb-like silence. Shock, horror, and disbelief descended like a dark shroud upon tens of thousands. The one man beyond reproach, the man who had carried the club on his shoulders for over a decade, who had single-handedly won Champions League and FA Cup finals, the living spirit of Liverpool, had made the most basic, most unlucky, and most devastatingly costly error imaginable. That single goal not only broke Liverpool's incredible winning streak, but more importantly, it broke their spirit. They lost the match 2-0, still reeling from the psychological trauma. In their next game, they famously surrendered a 3-0 lead against Crystal Palace to draw 3-3. A collapse dubbed Istanbul, the title slipped away, and Manchester City were crowned champions. Gerrard's slip transcended a mere mistake. It became a symbol of a tragic, almost Shakespearean destiny, a moment of profound sporting heartbreak that serves as the cruelest proof that in sports there are no scripts, and a lifetime of heroism can be forever damned by a single, unfortunate, heart-wrenching moment. Threzen Gonzalo Higuain's missed chance in the 2014 World Cup final and the biggest game on earth. A World Cup final. Destiny hands you a golden ticket. A calamitous defensive error leaves you a world-class striker, completely alone with only the goalkeeper to beat. A nation holds its breath. This is the moment that defines heroes. Or is it the moment that creates ghosts that will haunt you forever? Football is a game of inches and seconds. One perfectly weighted pass, one moment of composure, one clean strike of the ball can immortalize you, but one snatched shot, one moment of panic, one agonizing miss can erase your name from the trophy and write it into the book of eternal what-ifs. The 2014 FIFA World Cup final at the legendary Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro was a clash of titans. Lionel Messi's Argentina against the formidable German machine. For Argentina, it was a chance to end a 28-year drought, and for Messi, the greatest player of his generation, to finally capture the one prize that would cement his place in the pantheon alongside Diego Maradona. The German team was a powerhouse, having just humiliated the host nation Brazil 7-1. But Argentina's defense had been resolute, not conceding a single goal in the knockout stages. The stage was set for a tense knife-edge encounter in the 21st minute of the first half. The moment that would forever haunt Gonzalo Higuain arrived. German midfielder Toni Kroos, under no real pressure, made a calamitous, inexplicably roar. He attempted to head the ball back to his goalkeeper Manuel Neuer, but his header was weak and completely misdirected. It fell perfectly, beautifully, into the path of Higuain, who was lurking on the edge of the German defense. Suddenly, the entire Maracanã, the entire world, seemed to fade away. It was just Higuain, a proven top-level striker who scored goals for a living at Real Madrid, all alone, bearing down on goal with acres of space and only the keeper to beat. This was not a half-chance. It was a guilty-edged, career-defining opportunity. Time seemed to slow down. He had time to take a touch, to compose himself, to pick his spot. But in that moment of immense, crushing pressure, composure deserted him. He didn't take a touch. He rushed. He snatched at the shot, striking it on the volley. The connection was poor, the technique all wrong. The ball scuffed off his boot and dribbled harmlessly, agonizingly wide of the post. Higuain wheeled away, his hands on his head, a picture of pure disbelief and anguish. He knew. Everyone knew. You do not get a second chance like that in a World Cup final, that to compound his personal tragedy. Later in the match, he thought he had redeemed himself, scoring from a cross only to be correctly ruled offside. His celebration cut brutally short. The game remained deadlocked at 0-0, a war of attrition that stretched into extra time. And then, in the 113th minute, Germany's Mario Gigi produced a moment of sublime skill to score the winning goal. The what-if became a brutal reality. Had Higuain scored, the entire complexion of the final would have changed. Argentina would have had a lead to defend, and Germany would have been forced to chase the game. Instead, one agonizing miss, one moment where the pressure proved too great, became the defining image of Argentina's heartbreak. It was a brutal lesson in the fine margins of sport, where the gap between being a national hero and a national scapegoat is as thin as the width of a goalpost. 4. David Beckham's red card against Argentina in 1998. You are the golden boy of a nation. The handsome, talented face of a new generation. The hopes of your country rest on your gifted right foot. But in a moment of petulant frustration, you use that foot not to score a goal, but to flick out at an opponent. A small, childish kick that sends a nation's World Cup dream crashing down and turns you from an idol into a villain overnight. In the theater of football, there are heroes and there are villains. But sometimes, in the heat of a bitter rivalry, a hero can cast himself as the villain with a single, foolish act. This is the story of how David Beckham's moment of madness became a national obsession and nearly derailed a legendary career before it had truly begun. The 1998 FIFA World Cup second-round match between England and their arch-rivals Argentina was more than just a game. It was a collision of history, politics, and pure footballing animosity. The memory of the Hand of God and the Falklands War still lingered. The match itself was an instant classic, a pulsating, end-to-end thriller. A young Michael Owen had scored one of the greatest goals in World Cup history, and the game was poised at 2-2 early in the second half. David Beckham, at 23, was already a superstar for Manchester United and England's new icon, but he was also young and, at times, impulsive. Just 2 minutes into the second half, the future of England's campaign took a disastrous turn. Argentinian midfielder Diego Simeone, a master of the game's dark arts, clattered into Beckham from behind, sending him to the ground. It was a cynical foul, and Simeone deserved a yellow card. But what happened next was pure, calculated provocation, meeting naive retaliation. As Beckham lay on the grass, Simeone stood over him. In a moment of sheer frustration, Beckham, still on the floor, petulantly flicked his right leg out, tripping Simeone. That was a soft kick, more of a childish tap than a violent act. But Simeone, an expert provocateur, theatrically tumbled to the ground as if he'd been shot. The Argentinian players surrounded the referee, demanding action. The referee, Denmark's Kim Milton Nielsen, was left with little choice. He showed Beckham a straight red card for retaliation. England were down to 10 men for the entire second half in extra time. They fought heroically, bravely holding on for a penalty shootout, which, in classic English fashion, they lost. The reaction back home was vicious and unforgiving. Beckham became a national scapegoat. The 10 heroic lions. One stupid boy headline from the Daily Mirror summed up the mood. He was blamed single-handedly for the exit. An effigy of him was hung from a lamppost outside a London pub. He received death threats and was booed mercilessly at every away ground in England the following season. It was a trial by fire for a young man. The mistake was a moment of naivety, a failure to understand that in the high-stakes world of international football, opponents will do anything to gain an advantage. Beckham's kick was a small act of petulance, but its consequences were enormous, turning him into a pariah and teaching him a brutal lesson about composure and temperament on the world's biggest stage. His eventual redemption and rise to become a global icon makes the story even more powerful. 5. Brazil's 7-1 loss to Germany in the 2014 World Cup. It was supposed to be a carnival, a celebration, a nation's glorious march to destiny on home soil. Instead, it became a funeral, a 90-minute nightmare from which an entire country has never fully woken up. This is not just a story of a lost football match, it's the story of a national soul being crushed in front of the entire world. What happens when a team built on emotion and inspiration loses its heart and its spine? What happens when a football powerhouse forgets how to play football? The answer is the Minerazo. The answer is 7-1. The 2014 FIFA World Cup was Brazil's party. The spiritual home of football was hosting the tournament for the first time since 1950, and the entire nation was gripped by a singular obsession: to exorcise the ghosts of that 50 final loss and win a 6th World Cup on home soil. The team, led by superstar Neymar, had ridden a wave of raw, passionate, and sometimes overwhelming emotion to reach the semi-finals, but in their quarter-final victory over Colombia, disaster struck. Neymar suffered a fractured vertebra, ruling him out of the tournament. To make matters worse, their captain and defensive rock, Thiago Silva, picked up a yellow card and was suspended for the semi-final against Germany. The stage was set at the Estadio Mineiro in Belo Horizonte. Brazil entered the pitch not just without their best attacker and best defender, but seemingly without a tactical plan or emotional stability. They held up Neymar's jersey during the national anthem, a gesture meant to inspire, but in retrospect, it was a sign of a team already overwhelmed by sentiment, on the verge of a breakdown. Germany, a cool, calculating, and ruthlessly efficient machine, sensed the fragility. What followed was not a football match, but a systematic, surgical dismantling. It was a 29-minute period of collective insanity that will forever be etched in football history. Thomas Muller scored from a corner in the 11th minute, a simple, preventable goal that exposed Brazil's defensive chaos. Then, between the 23rd and 29th minutes, the floodgates didn't just open, they were blown off their hinges. Germany scored 4 goals in 6 minutes. Miroslav Klose scored to become the all-time leading World Cup goalscorer. Toni Kroos scored twice. Sami Khedira scored. Every German attack sliced through the Brazilian defense like a hot knife through butter. The Brazilian players were shell-shocked, wandering the pitch in a daze, their emotional system completely short-circuited. There was no leadership, no organization, no fight. It was a total collapse. The second half was a formality. Andre Schürrle added 2 more goals for Germany. The Brazilian fans in the stadium were openly weeping, a sea of yellow turning into a river of tears. Oscar's last-minute goal for Brazil was not even a consolation. It was a final, pathetic insult. The final score, 7-1, was so shocking, so surreal, that it felt like a typo. It was Brazil's worst ever defeat, the heaviest loss by a host nation in World Cup history, and a trauma that scarred the national psyche. The Minorazo became a new national tragedy, a byword for humiliation and collapse, and a brutal lesson that passion and emotion are no substitute for tactical discipline and mental fortitude on the biggest stage. Luis Suarez beating Giorgio Chiellini 2014 World Cup in the heat of a must-win World Cup match. A moment of primal, inexplicable madness. A world-class striker, one of the most gifted players of his generation, inexplicably sinks his teeth into an opponent's shoulder. It's not a foul, it's an act of cannibalism on a football pitch. Some athletes are defined by their genius, others by their flaws. And then there is Luis Suarez, a player whose breathtaking talent is forever intertwined with a bizarre self-destructive compulsion. This is the story of the bite that was seen around the world, the third and most infamous chapter in a truly strange saga. The 2014 World Cup group stage match between Uruguay and Italy was a tense, do-or-die affair. The winner would advance to the knockout stages. The loser would go home. The game was locked at 0-0, with time running out. Uruguay's hopes rested on the shoulders of their talismanic striker Luis Suarez, a player of sublime skill and ferocious competitiveness. In the 79th minute, as players jostled in the Italian penalty area awaiting a corner, Suarez and Italian defender Giorgio Chiellini were involved in an off-the-ball tussle. Suddenly, in a moment that defied all logic and sporting conduct, Suarez lunged his head forward and bit Chiellini squarely on the shoulder. Chiellini recoiled in pain and disbelief, pulling down his shirt to show the referee the clear bite. Suarez, in a bizarre piece of play acting, fell to the ground himself, clutching his teeth as if he were the injured party. The referee, having missed the incident in the chaos of the penalty box, waved play on. Just 1 minute later, Uruguay scored the winning goal from a corner, knocking Italy out of the World Cup. But the real story was the bite. While Suarez and Uruguay celebrated their progression, the world was replaying the incident in horrified fascination. It was not his first offense. He had previously bitten an opponent while playing for Ajax in 2010 and another while at Liverpool. In 2013, this was the third time he had committed this inexplicable act on a football pitch. The fallout was immense and immediate. FIFA launched an investigation and came down hard. Suarez was banned from all football-related activity for 4 months and suspended for 9 international matches. His World Cup was over. Without their star player, Uruguay were tamely eliminated by Colombia in the next round. The incident was a PR nightmare and cemented Suarez's reputation as a deeply flawed genius. His action was a colossal personal blunder, an act of self-sabotage that not only damaged his own career, but also crippled his country's hopes on the world's biggest stage. It remains one of the most bizarre and unforgettable moments of individual madness in sporting history, a testament to the strange and sometimes dark impulses that can overwhelm even the most elite athletes. 7. Loris Karius mistakes in the 2018 Champions League final. You are a goalkeeper, the last line of defense. You stand on the precipice of footballing immortality, the Champions League final. But in the biggest game of your life, under the brightest lights, your hands, the tools of your trade, betray you not once, but twice. You don't just lose a match. You hand-deliver the trophy to your opponents. In the loneliest position on the pitch, there is no place to hide. A striker can miss 10 chances and be forgotten if he scores one. A goalkeeper can make 10 saves but will be remembered forever for the one he lets slip. This is the story of a single night in Quito that created a ghost that would haunt a goalkeeper's career forever. The 2018 UEFA Champions League final in Quito pitted Jurgen Klopp's high-flying Liverpool against the European dynasty of Real Madrid, who were chasing a third consecutive title. The match was already tinged with heartbreak for Liverpool, as their star player Mohamed Salah was forced off early with a shoulder injury. The game was tense and goalless at the start of the second half. For Liverpool's German goalkeeper, Loris Karius, it was the biggest moment of his career. Then, in the 51st minute, came the first moment of inexplicable horror. Karius had comfortably collected a through ball. He looked up to start a quick counterattack. In a moment of sheer, almost unbelievable carelessness, he attempted to roll the ball out to a defender, completely oblivious to the fact that Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema was lurking right in front of him. Benzema simply stuck out a hopeful leg, and Karius's gentle throw deflected off it and trickled, in agonizing slow motion, into the empty net. It was a goal of such staggering absurdity that it barely seemed real. A gift, Liverpool, to their credit, fought back and equalized. But the stage was set for more drama. Gareth Bale put Real Madrid ahead with a sensational, once-in-a-lifetime overhead kick. Then, in the 83rd minute, with Liverpool still chasing the game, came Karius's second, and arguably worse, error. Bale, from about 40 yards out, unleashed a powerful but straightforward, swerving shot. It was hit with pace, but it was aimed directly at Karius. It should have been a routine, if difficult, save, but Karius seemed to misjudge the flight of the ball completely. He attempted to parry it, but his technique was flawed. The ball squirmed through his hands and into the net behind him. That was the final nail in the coffin. The final whistle blew and Karius collapsed to the turf, inconsolable, a broken man. He lay sobbing, his face buried in the grass, as his teammates tried to comfort him. He went over to the Liverpool fans, his hands held up in a gesture of apology, tears streaming down his face. It was a devastatingly human moment of public disintegration. His two blunders were not just mistakes. They were the kind of errors that shatter a player's confidence and career. For Karius, that night in Kyiv was a professional tragedy from which he never truly recovered. A brutal example of how the immense pressure of a final can cause a complete and catastrophic failure of basic skills. 8. Lionel Messi's temporary retirement from international football. 2016. He had won everything, every individual award, every club trophy. He was, too many, the greatest to ever play the game. But with his country, there was only heartbreak. After losing a fourth major final, the weight of a nation's expectations became too much. The god of football simply said, "I'm done." What happens when a hero gives up? When the man who carries the hopes of millions on his shoulders decides he can no longer bear the burden? For a few months in 2016, the football world went into a state of shock and mourning for a career that wasn't even over. The relationship between Lionel Messi and the Argentine national team has always been a complex, passionate, and often painful love story. Despite his godlike status at FC Barcelona, where he won every conceivable trophy, success with the Albiceleste proved cruelly elusive. He led his country to the 2014 World Cup final, only to lose in extra time. He led them to the 2015 Copa America final, only to lose on penalties to Chile. 1 year later, in 2016, the Copa America Centenario offered a chance for redemption. Once again, Messi was brilliant, carrying his team to the final. Once again, their opponents were Chile. And once again, after a goalless draw, the destiny of a continent's championship would be decided by the brutal lottery of a penalty shootout. As captain, Messi stepped up to take Argentina's first penalty. The weight of history, of past failures, of 40 million people's dreams, rested on that single kick. He ran up ... and skied it. He blasted the ball high over the crossbar into the New Jersey night. It was a shocking miss from a player renowned for his composure. His teammates couldn't recover from the blow. Chile went on to win the shootout, and Argentina had lost a third major final in 3 years. The image of Messi, alone and broken on the pitch after the final whistle, was heartbreaking. But what came next was even more shocking. In the post-match interview, his face a mask of profound and utter dejection, he announced his retirement from international football. "For me, the national team is over," he said quietly. "I've done all I can. It hurts not to be a champion." The world was stunned. It was a decision made in a moment of raw, unfiltered emotional pain. It was a human being, not a superstar, admitting that the burden had become unbearable. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Fans, pundits, even Argentina's president pleaded with him to reconsider. The blunder here was not a sporting error, but a deeply human, emotional one, driven by the immense psychological toll of repeated high-stakes failure. It was the moment the seemingly invincible hero showed his scars. Thankfully for the football world, the retirement was short-lived. Spurred on by the outpouring of support, he reversed his decision just a few months later. But that brief, shocking retirement remains a powerful testament to the crushing weight of expectation placed on a single individual, and a reminder that even the greatest of all time can be pushed to the breaking point. His eventual triumph at the 2022 World Cup made this moment of despair an even more poignant chapter in his legendary story. 9. Kylian Mbappe's missed penalty versus Switzerland Euro 2020. You are the new king of world football, the heir apparent to the throne. You are the fastest, most explosive, most confident player on the planet. In a dramatic penalty shootout, the fate of the world champions rests on your shoulders. It's your moment to be the hero. And then, you miss. The penalty shootout is sport at its most cruel, a test of nerve disguised as a test of skill. It can turn superstars into scapegoats in the time it takes for a ball to travel 12 yards. In 2021, it was Kylian Mbappe's turn to face that brutal reality. France entered the delayed Euro 2020-2021 as the reigning world champions and the overwhelming favorites. Their squad was an embarrassment of riches, a collection of world-class talent in every position. At the forefront of this attacking juggernaut was Kylian Mbappe, the young superstar who had set the world alight at the 2018 World Cup. He was expected to dominate the tournament. After navigating the group of death, France faced Switzerland in the round of 16. It was a match they were expected to win comfortably. However, what unfolded was one of the most thrilling and chaotic matches in recent European Championship history. With just 10 minutes to go, France were leading 3-1 and cruising towards the quarterfinals. Then, in a stunning collapse, they conceded 2 late goals, and the match went to extra time, and eventually to a penalty shootout. The tension was unbearable. Both teams were flawless through the first 4 penalties. The shootout went to sudden death. Switzerland's 5th penalty was scored, making it 5-4. The pressure now fell on France's 5th and final penalty taker, Kylian Mbappe. The fate of the world champions rested on the 22-year-old's shoulders. The weight of expectation was immense. He placed the ball, took his run up and struck it firmly to his right. But it wasn't a perfect strike. It was at a comfortable height for the goalkeeper, and Swiss keeper Jan Sommer guessed correctly, diving to his left and pushing the ball away. The Swiss players and fans erupted in delirious celebration. The French players and fans stood in stunned silence. Mbappe, the golden boy, the superstar, had missed the decisive kick. The world champions were out. It was a shocking seismic upset. For Mbappe, who had uncharacteristically failed to score a single goal throughout the tournament, it was a moment of profound personal failure on the biggest stage. He was visibly devastated. This blunder was a stark reminder that in football, reputation counts for nothing. It was a humbling moment for a young superstar, a brutal lesson in the unforgiving nature of knockout football and the immense psychological pressure of a single kick that can define a tournament and haunt a career. 10. Neymar's record transfer to PSG and the financial fallout. What is the price of a dream? For Paris Saint-Germain, it was €222 million. They didn't just buy a player, they bought a statement, a symbol of their ambition to conquer Europe. But what if that record-shattering price tag ended up being a golden cage, a move that distorted the entire football economy and arguably led a superstar away from, not towards, the ultimate prize? It was the transfer that broke football, a single transaction that triggered a hyperinflationary spiral in the transfer market, making €100 million players the new normal. But for the player at the center of it all, did the biggest move of his career come at the cost of his biggest ambitions? In the summer of 2017, the football world was dominated by one of the greatest attacking trios ever assembled, Messi, Suarez and Neymar MSN at FC Barcelona. They were a terrifying force, winning the Champions League in 2015 and playing a brand of football that was both beautiful and devastating. Neymar, the Brazilian prodigy, was the junior partner in this trio, the heir apparent to Messi's throne, but he was still in Messi's shadow. Then, Paris Saint-Germain, funded by the immense wealth of its Qatari owners, decided to make a move that would shake the foundations of the sport. They activated Neymar's €222 million release clause, a figure so astronomical it was thought to be a deterrent, not an actual price tag. Barcelona were powerless to stop it. PSG didn't just sign a world-class player, they made a geopolitical statement. They ripped one of the crown jewels away from a European soup club, announcing their arrival as a dominant force. The immediate fallout was a catastrophic market distortion. Barcelona, flushed with cash and desperate for a replacement, ended up paying over €100 million for Ousmane Dembele, a player of great potential but nowhere near Neymar's established quality. This single act of hyperinflation reset the market. Suddenly, transfer fees everywhere skyrocketed. The €222 million blunder was not PSG's alone. It was a collective error that created an unsustainable financial bubble. For Neymar himself, the move was a massive gamble. He left the side of the world's best player to be the undisputed king in Paris, to lead his own project and win the Ballon d'Or, while he achieved immense domestic success in France and became a global icon for the PSG brand. The ultimate prize, the UEFA Champions League, remained elusive. His time in Paris was plagued by injuries at crucial moments in the season, and a sense that the less competitive French league didn't push him to the absolute limits that La Liga had. He led PSG to one final in 2020, but they lost. The great irony is that the move designed to help him step out of Messi's shadow and win the Champions League arguably took him further away from consistent contention for it. It remains a landmark event in football history, a cautionary tale about ambition, money, and the unintended consequences of shattering every financial record in the book.